Hello, bonjour, and dumelang. Welcome to another episode of Sechaba. Are you listening? As always, I am your host, Moronga Musetli, and I'm joined by my lovely brother, TK.
Ubafi.
Oh, yes, you brought it back. Okay, yeah.
I'm
Hi,
good.
Buffy.
I'm alright. I hope everyone, you're all good and you're keeping track of the episodes.
I think they are. At this point, they have to be. They don't have a choice because every single time we do this, I get another special guest. And today, I'm with Kutlo Mphusu. She's a lawyer. She is also an activist, I believe, I think through her work, she does a lot of activism. But today, she is essentially coming to help us understand what sexual harassment or harassment in general looks like at work, because I don't think we really know what our rights are in the workplace, what's okay to be asked of you. I don't think we really research those things. And then when it comes down to, I guess, being picked on or being harassed, you don't always know how to pinpoint those things. So today she's going to help us unpack that just a little bit. But I'm just going to let her tell us, if she doesn't mind,
A little bit.
a little bit about who Kutlo is, what she does for a living, and how it is, how did you get to this point in your life today?
Okay. Well, I am Kutlo Mphusu. I run Mphusu Attorneys. I am an attorney. And I do a lot of activism work. It really just stems from the type of person I am. I'm a sucker for a sob story.
Yeah.
So I
I feel you.
always fight for the underdog. And it's a double-edged sword. It's great. It's fulfilling. It's not exactly profitable. So it can get frustrating.
That's
Yeah.
fair, yeah.
But it always feels like the right thing in the moment. And afterwards, it's always very fulfilling. So that's how I find myself where I am today.
Okay.
Nice.
I like that. I actually don't think enough people want to give for the sake of giving. So it's always nice to hear that, I do it because I love to give. I just can't help it. Yeah, that's very, very great. Just to jump into things because, we're here today to discuss something rather sensitive, actually. Can you start by telling us what is harassment and, I guess, by extension, sexual harassment, especially at work?
Well, harassment is really, it boils down to unwanted advances, be it comments, actually physically touching somebody. And, there are varying degrees of it, all the way up to actually being sexually assaulted in the workplace, all of which are common occurrences in the workplace. It can be something as simple as sexualizing maybe what you're wearing, can be touching, inappropriate touching in the workplace. Nobody is supposed to touch you without your consent.
Yeah.
So let's keep our hands to ourselves. I think generally in the workplace, you're not expecting anybody to come and touch you in the small of your waist or touch your buttocks or your hips or touch your chest for the buffies of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is generally, harassment is pretty much on a spectrum. So, there are varying degrees of it, and all of it is inappropriate in the workplace.
Would it be safe to say, because we are in this era where it's becoming a conversation, can you, what are the social norms? Would it also be safe to say this is something that happens a lot outside of the workplace as well, and because it's normalized outside the workplace, it becomes easier for people at work to just...
Yeah, I mean, with the way rape culture is so dominant within our society, people just have it ingrained into them, things that, like certain norms that are unhealthy and that feed into harassment in the workplace. Like, nobody should be calling you sweetie or baby or pet names. In the workplace, you have a name.
As you're speaking, I then just started thinking as well. I know, guys, I'm always thinking when people speak. But, it's always when someone says something powerful, you have to think about it,
True.
I think from your definition of harassment, a lot of us have normalized these unwanted, touchings. And I had a friend who was working at this other company, and she was like, no, this man, he likes to talk while he's grabbing women. I'm like, does he talk grabbing men? She's like, no. I'm like, so it's specifically women. It's like, yeah, but that's how he is. We've accepted him. But then I'm like, but don't you think that you now normalizing his behavior, maybe you're okay with it, but there's someone, your next sister might not be okay with being touched unwanted, and like getting this unwanted touchings. And because now we've normalized it, have we not silenced that person from speaking up? Because even other women now are saying that's who he is. Do you think that also feeds into this culture of silencing those who are actually experiencing harassment by even some of the people who we perceive as victims saying that it's normal?
Yes, definitely. It all goes back to rape culture. How even the victims or potential victims, they've also internalized unhealthy biases and norms that allow them to sort of like your friend who was saying, but he's just like that. Nobody's just like that. He should keep his hands to himself. But because just generally because of the norms or the biases that she's internalized in her mind, she rationalizes it. He's just that way when nobody should be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, I worked in a certain company, and I think there is a big sexual harassment culture in that company. It's just that I tend to become a little bit hyper-focused when I'm working. So I sometimes can't see the things that happen around me because I'm so focused on what I'm doing. And I didn't realize this until I had one of the managers. He was trying to see where the boundaries are with me because I was new in the workplace. I was always just to myself doing my work. And there was a day he came up behind me, and he, when somebody rubs their hands up your back and then they put their hands on your shoulders. Now, because in my mind, nobody should ever touch me in the workplace. I was standing in the middle of a doorway speaking to another manager, and this guy, he came up behind me and he did that. So the moment he did that, I like basically freaked out. I just jumped and I like dipped to see who's touching me. I was shocked. He looked like he was shocked that I was shocked. And the other manager, like his face did not move. His face was stone. And I was like, okay, this is strange. And even in that moment, it didn't click in my mind that that's actually sexual harassment. And a couple of weeks passed, and there was always like workplace auctions and stuff like that in the business. And all the employees would be allowed to bid on things that were being auctioned. So I'm standing in the doorway, and he does the same thing. And because I'm not expecting to be touched in the workplace, I literally jumped into the room, and everybody was looking at me like, what is your problem? So these are things that are very, very common in the workplace. And when it's normalized by everybody around you, you feel crazy being like, why is he touching me like that? Or why is he speaking to me like that? Or why is she speaking to me like that? Or why is she touching me? And just like what your friend was doing, it's not okay for us to normalize it. If we're able to call it out, then victims would have a lot more confidence in being able to address these situations as and when they come up.
You're actually right. Going into now, I would like to know, because like you said, it didn't immediately dawn on you. And when I think about it, probably, I've probably seen a few situations in my life, and it just didn't. I'm so used to my homies on the street, bo my size. I'm so used to those guys that I think when it's less blatant, when it's less, because it's not the most overt thing. So how do I now know? Or what steps or what rights do I have when I feel like, no, guys, nah, man, I've been violated. That wasn't okay. What steps can I take or what are my rights? Where can I go? How do I begin to address it?
It would largely depend on the workplace policies around sexual harassment. And in that policy, you typically find reporting channels and you'd report through those channels. But realistically speaking, most people are not going to report those incidents that seem small because for fear of being viewed as a troublemaker or being victimized and bullied in the workplace. Because these are things that have happened before.
Yeah.
They happen quite frequently. You find that the victim, or rather maybe the survivor, who actually refuses to tolerate that and takes it up and makes the report and tries to follow the policies, that person tends to be victimized in the workplace and bullied. And a lot of times you find that they will be subjected to constructive dismissal. So constructive dismissal is when I'm your boss. I don't want you in the workplace. I don't want you anymore because of whatever reasons. In this case, you've reported me for touching your chest, Buffy, and I don't want you in the workplace anymore. So I make life hell for you. I make it so difficult for you that you would rather quit than be subjected to that. And that's generally what they will do to people who make reports, because the sad thing about it is those of us who are against sexual harassment, GBV, a lot of the social ills that we deal with, we are not quick enough to rally. We're not as fast as the people who actually perpetrate these type of offenses and crimes on other people. Them and their allies, they're able to just rally and mobilize so fast. They'll close rank on you so fast. HR, management, your boss, everybody will be against you in what feels like a flash.
Yo. Yeah, no. This is actually very difficult. Okay, TK. Right quick. Because I need a counselor's opinion now.
You're putting me on the spot.
So how do I begin to cope? How do I stand up and be like, no, I'm not taking this constructive dismissal?
Okay, firstly, I would then say that, with harassment, they can come a form of trauma, which can even lead to panic attacks. You enter the office and your heart starts, palpitating. You can't breathe. You enter the elevator and that boss walks in or that manager walks in, and all you go on is autopilot, and you don't even know how you got to your desk because you just disassociated, with yourself. So people always tend to think that sexual harassment is something that is very light, and the effects are also light because they'll say, but it was just touching. This person didn't even sexually assault you, rape you or anything. So it's not violent. Just move on with your life. But it's more complex than that. It's similar to when we experience the same level of trauma. I could come to work the next day laughing. You would miss work for 3 weeks, right? It doesn't mean that I'm stronger than you or I have better coping mechanisms. It's just that we are different people. We process things differently. So to those that are experiencing sexual harassment, it's not a one shoe size fits all. We can say, yes, there are coping mechanisms. Go for therapy, go for behavioral therapy. But at the same time, if you find that the place is that much of a trigger, it's okay to protect your mental health and say, look, I don't think I can work here anymore. It's okay. You're not a failure by stepping away from something that is not proving to be helpful towards you. What is the point of forcing yourself in an environment like the way Kutlo is defining it, where everyone rallies against you? you feel like you're insane. Even suicidal ideation can even develop to a point where you might even lose your life just because you thought, you could change a culture that is very much toxic. So it's better to go where you feel appreciated, where you feel loved, where you feel respected. Yes, unemployment is not something that all of us want. It's not something that is good to even experience. But sometimes it's okay to just look for something elsewhere. I know people will say, but TK, you're a man. You're speaking from a point of privilege. But my follow-up question would have been to Kutlo to say, do you think that women also can be perpetrators of sexual harassment? To show that it's not just, a thing of I'm speaking from a point of privilege, but it's a thing of I'm speaking from a point of humanity. We need to also support one another in the workplace. Yeah. If Kutlo comes to me and says, TK, there is a man at the center who has been making, I will say, do not come and confront him with me. I will go confront him myself. I'll consider it handled. You see, we need more people like that who be able to put themselves in someone else's shoes and be willing to take the button stick from them and run the race for them as well, to show them that we are here together. Because I think there is that disconnect. So therapy, support, community, and the change of mindset. I know that's something that has been floating in Botswana for a while. Yeah.
Mindset change. Some very, very important stuff. Guys, 2 minutes, okay? We'll be right back on Sechaba. Are you listening? Welcome back to Sechaba. Are you listening? I'm still here with my co-host TK and our wonderful guest Kutlo. Before we disappeared to the corners, we wanted to know, in your opinion, Kutlo, is this just like a man's problem? Is it just men who are out here inappropriately, hey, my size? Or, is it something I can also be doing, whether intentionally or unintentionally? Me as a female, could I possibly also be sexually harassing people?
Yes, women are frequently perpetrators of sexual crimes. It's just that we speak a lot more about men being the perpetrators, and men notoriously report way less than women. In the workplace, women are known to harass men, make comments on their physique, on what they look like. They're known to get physical with men. They're known to pursue inappropriate relationships with men where a woman is your boss and she is showing interest in you. And that puts you under pressure. As a man, you are likely to go along with what she wants to preserve your job most of the time, or to make sure you're in her good graces, or to get that promotion. But there's both men and women. Another issue is that you sometimes find that there's certain workplaces where the culture in the workplace is, I would call it a toxic workplace culture, because personally, I do not believe that there should be relationships in the workplace. We should not be sleeping together. We should not be having relationships in the workplace.
Can I just randomly ask? Because I generally agree that we shouldn't be dating in the workplace. But good Lord. Sometimes, perhaps it's an individual thing, but might there be a more respectful way of approaching a colleague I perhaps feel is kind of fun? Is there a nicer way maybe I could approach it?
In my mind, I don't think there's a nicer way. We have to go to work. And that's what we should do at work. We should not be approaching people and all of that. I just think it opens up a Pandora's box, because just like on the street, the man or woman that you're looking at, that you're trying to holler at, cannot be interested. They can also just not not want any of that. And then it quickly turns into sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Because
no,
in the
that's true.
workplace, they may not be able to reject you in a way that would be very obvious to you, the same way, at a bar or at a restaurant, somebody could reject you. There might be other reasons. You may be senior to them. You may have control of certain aspects of their work that prevents them from being able to let you know without any ambiguity that they do not want this.
Yeah.
They might just have to tolerate your little sexual comments because you're their boss or you're their supervisor or you work with them on a particular important project that they need to do well in. So it's just, as a rule of thumb, avoid fraternizing in the workplace.
Okay.
Well said. Well said.
Okay. Now also, just to be sure, because no, guys, now I'm learning. I don't know about the rest of you. I want to be able to draw my lines. Workplace functions, like you said, you sometimes had like the work auctions. Perhaps there's an end of year party or any other sort of event where we're supposed to let our hair down. The rules of diplomacy essentially stay the same. Like, you really shouldn't get too drunk. You really shouldn't party too hard. But can those lines begin to get blurred because of that? How do we navigate those types of events so that those things don't happen, besides, don't drink too much?
The rules of diplomacy, like you said, don't drink too much. You are actually still at work, at your workplace event.
Yes.
Don't, as a rule of thumb, 1 or 2 drinks max. Have some good conversations, move around, network a bit, and leave as soon as you can to avoid the inevitable drama that comes with some of these events, especially when there's a lot of alcohol involved. So it's just a matter of taking care of yourself, being safe, as much as I think we all know that not every environment that we're in is safe. So part of being safe is actually you taking the steps to mitigate against certain things happening to you. Making sure that you are not, completely wasted in this environment where you should also remember that your colleagues, they're your colleagues. You don't actually know these people. You don't know who's a date rapist. You don't know who's got their eye on you and is just waiting for you to get drunk so they can take advantage of you. It's the equivalent of being out in the streets at a random bar or random club. You just so happen to know these people's names and faces. But you don't actually know who they are because they're your colleagues at the end of the day. So it's important to also keep yourself safe. As much as we strive to have safe spaces and safe environments, it's also important for us to take accountability for ourselves.
You mentioned earlier that with reporting and dealing with sexual harassment, especially in the workplace, you have to look at said companies' policy. Is that then to say that there is no legal remedies outside the workplace?
Currently, unfortunately, the legal framework for workplace sexual harassment in Botswana, it's very scanty. There's not much there. It is in an act that regulates government employees only. However, the Employment Act, which regulates everybody else outside of government employees, it doesn't cover sexual harassment actually in the workplace, which is quite disappointing. Because it creates a situation where when you are a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace, it's very hard to assert your rights. Because at the same time, in our environment, not a lot of companies actually have sexual harassment policies. And if they do have them, they are gathering dust somewhere in a corner. And it's not something that we are seeing the private sector prioritize in terms of campaigning for sexual harassment to be stopped, to be reported, in terms of them making it clear that there are zero tolerance towards that kind of behavior, which, I mean, in the private sector, it's very, very common. So it's not surprising that there's little to no advocacy coming directly from the corporates, which is very, very disappointing. Because when you run a business, your employees are your human capital. They're a form of capital, and you should be striving for their wellness in every way, including protecting them from workplace sexual harassment. But
here we are.
here we are.
Here we are.
2024.
I actually did not know. Like,
Same.
I really thought there would have been at least 1 law, 2 laws, 3 laws.
That cover all of us. Unfortunately, they only cover government employees. And even then, I don't believe that they're used nearly enough. There's a strong culture of workplace sexual harassment in this country. It's insane how little, even in where there are laws regulating it and protecting people, how little those laws are implemented and how much people are able to get away with in workplaces throughout the country and at all levels, from your girl working in a Chinese shop or in a bar, all the way to your attorney working in the biggest private company in the country. You know, it's happening at all levels.
Yeah.
It's not discriminating.
Yeah.
Okay. Since our lawmakers seem to be taking their sweet time in figuring out how to do this, what can we do as the regular person on the street? Like, how do we begin at least trying to change the culture or call it out, or like, what steps can we take? Do I just start posting, hey, Mr. Samang Mang does ABCD, you know?
Exposed.
And dropping the receipts.
For me, I don't know if the route of exposing people and canceling people, I don't know if it works. I haven't seen it work as yet.
Yeah,
It's generally a fleeting social media trending topic for a day or two, and then we just move past it, and we don't even bother to figure out whatever happened with that alleged abuser. So I think the best way would be just we need to change our mindset. There we go, mindset
there we
change.
go. Bring it on back.
We definitely need to change our mindset around harassment, around sexual assault, around rape. I think challenging rape culture would go a long way in dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace, because it's like the baby to rape culture, you know. Without rape culture, there wouldn't be sexual harassment in the workplace. It comes from that entitlement to other people's bodies and, you know, their time and crossing those boundaries that stem from the ideas that are rooted in people from rape culture. So I think having conversations like this is very important. And definitely, I think, you know, you can call people out. That works for a very small little bit of time. But I think it would be more important to call the organizations themselves out. Why are the organizations allowing for, say, the CEO or somebody on management to be perpetrating these offenses against people in their workspace, and why are they not protecting the people in the workspace? And then just a lot of education, a lot of unlearning and learning is needed. And then calling corporate out, just generally as corporate Botswana, calling them out for their lack of advocacy when it comes to not just workplace sexual harassment, but GBV as well. There's very little advocacy coming from the private sector in that regard. There's very little that we're seeing them do. And calling them out to say, where are your policies? Where's your contribution to society regarding these matters? how are we to address these matters without you when your pockets are so deep? You know, our government is making strides with respect to GBV, but there's only so much that the government can do because there is this whole other private sector that has all this funding for whatever it is that they think is important. And this is despite the fact that issues of workplace sexual harassment, they affect the very people that they use to generate those big profits that they make them, allow them to have such deep pockets. So I think that is where we can start. And then as a community as well, like creating support systems, being willing to support victims, not disregarding what somebody is saying because, oh, he's just like that. Oh, you're so dramatic. Actually creating the safe space for a person who has been subjected to such treatment to be able to, even if it's just to have a conversation, to just get it off their chest or to ask for advice or to figure out what steps can be taken in the situation that they find themselves in.
You mentioned very powerful point, which was the unlearning and learning of like a new behavior or an already existing behavior, which is now more in the positive. Just to throw a curveball here, do you think it's something, let's say topics like sexual harassment and even GBV should be introduced in the school system? Do you think it could help, to learn about these things? Because I know I'm always telling people that I first heard about the word consent when I was now in university. It was something that never came across my circles in primary, high school. It was always like, I was always being told if a teacher does this, never told that if your peer does this, if your friend does this, it's a no. You must ask to touch someone. You must ask, I just thought kissing was like that in the movies where you just meet a girl, you're like, I like you, you just go in for a kiss. Exactly. But so now I'm just thinking back and I'm realizing that if I had learned maybe some of these, I could have even been able to identify when I was a child, when I was actually sexually harassed by even some of these older people in the workplace, for example, because school is still a workplace for other people. Yes, we can say sexual harassment in the workplace for women in the workplace, but there's also women who are in schools who are pursuing an education that are being harassed by their teachers.
Definitely. Definitely. It's very common.
So do you think we should introduce it? And if it's introduced, do you think there would be even backlash from parents saying you're desensitizing our innocent children?
I definitely think it should be introduced. It's really, really important to have these tough conversations with the children.
That's
and
true.
Yes, there may be parents that will be uncomfortable with that. But these are hard conversations for anybody to have at any age. But the knowledge is what's going to allow your child to be able to protect themselves, to be able to report, to be able to understand when something wrong is happening. So I definitely think it's really, really important to teach about sexual harassment, about GBV in the workplace, about consent, at school, about consent as well, because a lot of people do not learn about consent. You are not alone. You're really not alone, Buffy. I remember when my younger brother started university, I sat him down and I gave him a lesson on consent. Because I recognize that university, it's a bit of a crazy place. And there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of drinking and partying and dating that happens. So I spoke to him about consent and what constitutes rape and all the different ways that rape can be constituted. And he was shocked. He was like, what? Really? I'm like, yes.
Oh, wow.
If you do that, that is rape. So education goes a long way. It goes a really, really long way. Like, the more information that we spread, the better. Like, I always go back to the ABC campaign that the government used to have. Abstain, be faithful, and condomize. This is the campaign that was against HIV. that was done. I can't even remember when it was, but I remember it from primary school.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in my 30s. I'm firmly in my 30s now, and I still remember it. Like
Yes.
rolls off the
Yes.
top of my head like it's nothing, because the government put serious push around it. There was a serious effort to spread the word, to create education around that topic. So I think if that can be done for the other societal issues that we're facing, such as GBV, sexual harassment, sexual assaults, we can be able to actually make a change.
Okay. I like that. I really like your question, because now I have a follow-up based on something that I know. So back in the day, we had this French teacher that was known for having students at his house. Now, I can't tell you what these students were doing at his house, but we were all under the age of 17. And maybe both of you can answer this question. Would that have been a form of... What term do I want here? Because like I can't say they slept together, but it's this grown man with these 16, 15-year-olds at his house partying. Is that a form of harassment, a form of pedophilia, a form of something wrong with that man?
There's definitely something wrong. I mean, from my perspective, there's something definitely wrong, because even if you were to say, no, it's remedial work, do the parents know that their children
the parents didn't know.
Does the principal know? Is this something that has been stamped by the school to say this is happening officially?
Nope.
So if it's not happening officially, why is it not that this man didn't seek the official channel to have this happen in his house? I'm not saying, because I know sometimes my parents will be like, oh no, you want to have a party? Okay, bring your friends over. They will leave the house and leave maybe 2 grown adults to supervise. And the parents in the neighborhood will know, okay, at Mr. and Mrs. Muita's place, there's going to be this house party that's happening. So and so are the adults who are going to be there. If they also want to come and just supervise, they have to let us know in advance. No parent will just rock up, on the day and say, I'm here to supervise. I want to just watch the children swimming. And no, you have to communicate.
Yeah.
So the fact that he wasn't communicating with anyone, in my books, what he was doing was wrong.
It sounds like grooming behaviors.
Definitely.
Okay. All right.
You got it from the lawyer.
Yes. Yeah. Now she's actually giving me something else to ask about. Now, can grooming behaviors also show up in the workplace? Because yes, it's perhaps easy for me to now, as an adult, say to my boss, no, I will not come to your house. That's a bit of a weird request. But is it possible for my boss to manipulate me without me realizing that this person is coaxing me? Say like, I don't know, weekly Scrabble nights that seem innocent but maybe lead to something else, or eventually lead to something else where after 6 months, they touch you on the back and,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely possible. It definitely is possible, and it's typically characterized by it. I mean, it starts off very innocently. You wouldn't even be able to pick it up, and they just like grooming. The idea of grooming is to get somebody to become close to you and to trust you, and eventually there becomes the inappropriate requests. And then they find a way to be able to get you alone. And then from there, they're able to keep pushing the boundary, like I was talking about the manager from my previous workplace. Like what he was doing, he was trying to establish where the boundary is. So with just one touch, he could see that, okay, is she going to react badly to this, or is she going to ignore it? And had I ignored it, his behavior just would have escalated and gone further and further.
Yeah.
So with workplace grooming, you'd find that it's you probably would not even be able to realize it while it's happening initially until you are now always working late with this person or having to travel just you and them for work when they could have gone with anybody else. And when you find yourself alone with that person, that's when you'll really see that this person does not think I'm this amazing
Yeah.
employee. They literally brought me here, or they've engineered the situation so that they can have me by myself with them, so that they can be able to see how far they can push my boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh, Lord.
We're learning.
Hey. Then in that case, I wonder, at what point do I have legal recourse?
That is part of the call of everybody who is trying to advocate for GBV and to advocate against GBV and against sexual harassment. That's a part of it, because you find yourself almost feeling helpless.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know where to look. You don't know how to deal with it. You don't know who to trust. You don't know which steps to take in the first place. And then the legal framework itself, it's all but non-existent, because in my view, if there is a regulation or a law that is designed to cover certain people and it doesn't cover the full population, then it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's
Yes,
true.
government employees are likely to constitute most of the employed people in the country, but the fact that the Employment Act itself does not address issues of sexual harassment in the workplace, it leaves out a very big population of the workforce in Botswana. So it leaves them exposed, and it leaves them without remedy.
Hish.
A lot of times people will leave their jobs, but
But that doesn't help.
it's a double-edged sword, because yes, you leave your job and you get away from this environment, but on the other side of the sword, you're unemployed
Yeah. Yeah.
in an environment where employment, it can be hard to find, it can be hard to secure.
Very.
So you'll find a lot of people are subjected to all sorts of horrible things in the workplace, but they just can't leave because they have to put food on the table. So it's quite a tough situation that we find ourselves in,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is why there should be these strong calls for these organizations to be the ones to take a strong and firm stance against this. Because the people who are supposed to be making those very decisions sometimes are also the perpetrators
That's true.
of these offenses.
That's
and
very, very true.
they benefit from those cultures that they've created. And, my hope has always been that having more women in leadership positions would lead to a decline in that. But I'll tell you,
Even the ladies.
at that job that I was talking about, I remember a conversation being had about me while I sat in the office with my female supervisor at the time, speaking to that man who kept trying to touch me. And she was saying, no, I'm going to send Kutlo down to get you to sign off on whatever or other document. And obviously he speaks on the phone. I can't hear what he's saying. I can hear what she's saying because I'm sitting in front of her. And she says, nya togela ngwana o no sa re wa nyala. So clearly a conversation is being had about me
very
that is
sexual
very inappropriate and possibly sexual,
presence.
which is why my boss at the time was casually even laughing, saying, no, I thought you said you're getting married. Leave this child alone. And that is a woman. She's a woman herself in the corporate space. And the truth is that unless the organizations themselves actually take a stand, the women in leadership, they're also not going to take a stand, because there's so many women in leadership currently in our corporate space in Botswana. Do we not think that there would be a lot more advocacy against sexual harassment in the workplace, considering how
should
many
be.
women hold power in the corporate space.
Should be.
And the issue is that it's not about women holding power in the corporate space. It's
Yeah.
about the culture. They're also trying to dance for the bread on their table. They're trying to make sure that they keep those jobs. So it's the culture itself. It's very difficult to go against a culture that's so deeply ingrained.
Yeah.
You risk losing what you perceive to be everything that you've worked for.
Wow.
That really does make sense. Okay, TK, right quick, because we're going to have to go soon.
Okay. Don't want to leave.
Please, can you give us some ideas, just from a counselor's point of view? How do I seem like, how would I identify that I am a sexual harasser or, a sexual deviant, or like, how do I know I am perpetrating some of these things, and how do I bring it back a bit and like stop? Because I think some people don't know they're doing it. Some people are aware, but I guess there's a mental element that suggests that, the brain is saying, no, go sharp.
So like you said, some people do know that they're doing it. So there's not even a necessary step they need to take. It's just stop, right? Stop. If it's more of sex addiction, like it's more of like you get a thrill out of it. Go for therapy. Yes, sometimes people say hurt people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have been molested as a child, and now you're also now projecting what you experienced. That's why there's therapy, right?
Yes.
And then for those that aren't aware that this is the behavior they're causing, right? The first thing that you do as yourself, every time you wake up or every time you go to sleep, just be vulnerable with yourself. You don't have to be vulnerable with anyone else, just yourself. Look at what you did in the day. What did you do that pleased you? What did you do that you think could have offended someone, could have hurt someone? It's not to say you're a bad person. If you look at the day and everything you did was wrong, it's not to say that then beat yourself up and say you're a horrible human being. But that vulnerability, once you're vulnerable with yourself, it's easier for you to then seek help.
Yeah.
Because you can't seek help if you're still on a high horse and you still think you're the king of the world and everything, should bow down to you. But the moment you're vulnerable with yourself and you're willing to accept yourself with your flaws and then seek help, then that can be the first step you can take into making your workplace safer for the people that work under you or work for you. But so long as you're not willing to have that self-introspection, even journal, guys, like I sometimes do it. I write, what made me feel bad today? What made me feel happy? Look at a common theme. If women keep popping up as your common theme, then you need to kind of like readjust, So it's okay to have a problem, but what you do with that problem is what counts.
I like that. And then I think also be a safe space, guys. I think maybe there's nothing we can not that there's nothing we can do, but hey, paleche, guys, we don't, if you're really not coping, yes, please step out of that situation. But if you think you can handle it, at the bare minimum, find a safe space. And Loena, who's maybe not experiencing it but is witnessing it, please be the safe space, because I think based on this conversation today, it's safe to say there just isn't really enough safe spaces. Like they exist, but they seem to be far away. It's not directly close to me. So okay.
Just to close off, if you are being subjected to this kind of treatment, do your best to try to keep a record of sorts. If you are intending to actually take this up and take a stand within your workplace, do your best to keep a very strong track record. Keep emails, send emails. When you make your complaints, always make sure there's a written track record. And if you're using a workplace email, always make sure that you send those emails to your private email, because the day that you actually want to take a firm stance, and it becomes very clear that you're not going to let go or accept that type of treatment, ranks will close very fast, and you will no longer have access to that work email with all of those emails and all of that proof. And if you ever find yourself in a position where you have made a report in your workplace and now you're being subjected to bullying and harassment, again, create a very strong track record, because in order to make a case for constructive dismissal, we have to be able to show that the workplace, the conditions that were created in the workplace was so terrible that you had no other choice but to quit. So you do that by keeping your track record. You do that by I have a conversation with my boss, and my boss has an unreasonable request from me. I follow it up with an email just to follow up on our conversation where you asked me to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will have that done by tomorrow. Send that email and the response to your personal email. Because once you decide to take action, just know that you're fighting a battle against probably a machine that's a lot bigger than you are. And it's very, very important to keep track of everything that's happening and keep record of everything that's happening to you. So when you do actually take it forward to labor or to industrial court, or you seek legal representation, there's a foundation for your case.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I know we're supposed to go. My producers are about to get mad at me, but I have to ask just in case. There are some things that people may be asked to do verbally on the sly. What are the technicalities around me recording certain conversations per se? Because maybe they won't respond to the email and they'll insist on coming to me physically to say, hey, no, I said wash my car and, be here at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow.
Yes. So what I would do in that kind of environment is I wouldn't write the email asking them. I'd write the email confirming the instruction. Like say, to confirm that you asked me to wash your car at 5 a.m. in the morning. I will be here at 5 a.m. in the morning to wash your car.
Okay.
And leave it at that.
Okay.
That's enough of a record.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at least now you also have, Google with her handy location services. So I guess as you go do that task, you can also turn on that service so that you have physical proof on your phone that I was in this place at this time. I don't know, maybe even take pictures of yourself doing the work. I guess technically that means no, let me not record the boss without their permission. It's best to just keep my own.
It's best not to record people without their permission.
Okay.
It can be a bit sticky in trying to use that information moving forward.
Okay. Guys.
But you can record it just to have a record. In case it gets violent and you need to possibly report to the police. But for purposes of using in court action, it can be a bit sticky recording people without their permission.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. Once again, I have learned a lot today. I hope you have learned a ton as well.
Yep.
Looking back, discovering that, there was some harassment, there was some bullying. That one job, I may have been constructively dismissed. But I did not know I was supposed to keep proof. But it's okay. It's okay. I've learned now.
And it's okay. They say it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. It's very, very difficult to see it when you're in the situation.
Yeah, that's true. But now I know better, and I am going to do better, like Mama Maya Angelou once said. Guys, we are clocking off for the day. We will see you next time on Sechaba. Are you listening?